My name is Evelin. I will speak today on behalf of MAVIR, the Hungarian TSO. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Today I will have two really brief slides which try to introduce you some background on the key question of our panel, but I guess we will not be able to answer the questions in behind, but at least some information for you. The first slide is about to introduce you a simplified list of the Hungarian services as system services or ancillary services. Altogether we have three big groups of it. The first big group is balancing services. The second big one is the system services, as we call it. And since we discuss about customers or demand, I brought with me the third big group, which is rather about emergency situations, but still it's about demand, it's about customers. FutureFlow was mainly about the first two groups, balancing services, but regarding the second group, we still have really important services where we need to take into consideration customers or demand as well. Here I would like to highlight the redispatch function, where currently we have services for congestion management as a network-based redispatch, and we still or already have a system adequacy-based redispatch system, which is generally about supporting the balancing services. Since FutureFlow was mainly about the balancing market, I try to show you some timestamps of the Hungarian system, how these market segments changed in the last few years. But at the very beginning, I would like to mention that currently we have three market places for balancing capacity. The first one is FCR, the second one is AFRR, and the third one is MFRR. Here it is mainly about the procurement of the minimum balancing capacity which the Hungarian TSO needs in order to be able to balance the system. And as a second half of this market, we have balancing energy services, where we have AFRR and MFRR markets. What is a really important thing to mention here is that since 2010, balancing energy market is almost completely independent from balancing capacity market, since market participants can provide balancing energy bids even not being procured for balancing capacity services. What I got as a tip is to use some timestamps, and the first one was 2015 or even before 2015, and I would like to show you some stories, some brief notes which happened to us in the Hungarian system. So the first one is about virtual power plants. Since 2011, we have quite an active market for virtual power plants. At the very beginning, we had generation only, which were involved in this balancing capacity and balancing energy market. But it evolved, it changed a lot, and I will show you later on about this. The second thing, which I already mentioned, was about that balancing energy market allows having free bids, meaning if you are not reserved, if you are not procured as balancing capacity service provider, you can still provide a bid as a balancing energy service provider, and even if you are not reserved, a merit order list-based activation process will create the competition in between the balancing energy bids. The third thing which I think is important to mention, that we already have an hourly resolution for day-ahead bidding, meaning balancing energy bids are procured or collected on a day-ahead basis, and the smallest time resolution you can provide a bid is 1 hour with 1 megawatt. The second timestamp, let's say, was 2020. It's really close to us. We have quite a lot of challenges since Clean Energy Package has arrived, and we still have the third energy package to introduce, to implement. The first note which I brought here was aggregators, since by these 5 or 9 years, virtual power plants have changed a lot. We not only have generation included in these aggregators, but we have demand as well, and we have storage coming into the system. They would like to invest, they would like to participate, and they would like to become an active member of this market. The second topic, which is still in front of us, I called it BSP becoming independent from the BRP system or structure. It means in 2020 we would like to implement that even it is 4 or 3 BRPs where units come from, it can become 1 BSP. We wouldn't like to strict that an aggregator has to be included in 1 BRP. It's a very crucial element in our case, since this will be one of the biggest steps in order to enable renewables to take part in balancing energy market or even in balancing capacity market. The third big step in front of us, or what we need to take in 2020, is the introduction of the baseline methodology. It is important to mention that here we wouldn't like to implement a completely new system and a completely special case for those generators or consumers who cannot participate in the current system. Here we would like to introduce them in the current one, meaning this baseline would be or should be applicable for every generator, every demand, and every storage. So we would rather use, let's say, a reference schedule in balancing instead of introducing a baseline which can be applied by renewables. And the last one, as let's say the biggest step for all of us, is the introduction of the intraday balancing energy market, which according to our current plans, will begin on the 1st of January. Here we will have a 1 hour lead time based 1 hour product for the intraday balancing energy market, meaning on day ahead level we will request BSPs to provide their bids, but on intraday level they can modify it or they can even provide new bids. And regarding 2020 or even after it, I really don't know what we can say here, but I try to provide some guesses, because what we see is that day by day, month by month, everything changes. So what we expect is that aggregators will further develop, will react on the market structure really quickly and really actively. What we expect is that we will have new products to be implemented, even if it is balancing or even if it is a frequency-related ancillary service, but we need to expect some deviation from the current system. And what we think is really crucial is to start or to begin or to even finish TSO-DSO cooperation in an active manner, since we cannot live without a common flexibility platform, common solutions even in congestion management or in other services, which will be necessary for both TSOs and DSOs. What we think is inevitable and has to be done in the really near future is the introduction of a quota-hourly product, since electricity markets already would like to deal with really short products. Balancing energy market shouldn't be slower than the electricity market. And as a last point, I mentioned here really simply European platforms. I think this will be the biggest challenge for us after 2020, since these platforms have to realize the integration of this European balancing energy market, which is still under discussion and cannot be done without the European BSPs, the European TSOs, and even without European BRPs. So the whole market needs to cooperate in it, and without transparency, without equality, and without really active communication, it cannot be done. That's all from me. Thank you very much.